Good evening, son. I was traveling, then out with friends, then out again, then out again, and then traveling a little bit more. So, bit under the weather. So, I might have you do most of the talking this episode. All right, are you ready to go?
I am ready to go.
Hello, welcome to Hard Compound, the American Tech and Formula One. We just finished watching the Japanese Grand Prix. Max took it personal, but so did Lewis. Patrick, son, can I get your thoughts on the Japanese Grand Prix 2023?
Yep, pretty special race, I guess, for Red Bull. They completed the back-to-back Constructors' Championship here for the first time in a long time, at least for that specific team. Dominant win from Max, needed no help from his teammate. He did not appreciate losing in Singapore last week, or not losing, but just not getting first place. And
For
so,
Max, that's losing, right?
yeah. So, yeah, I agree. I think he took that personally and he decided that the best course of action would be to slaughter everybody else in this race. And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, I think he had the best times in practice and qualifying, pole, won the race, fastest lap. I think he was making a statement there. He'll get almost certainly his third World Driver Championship this year. Red Bull have now locked down their sixth Constructors title. That's 2 in a row. I think they'll be the next team to get to 200 wins. I believe it's, Ferrari, probably McLaren. And then I'm not sure if there's anyone else, but I think Mercedes is probably ahead of them. But I do think the future belongs to Red Bull.
Seems likely.
It might also belong to McLaren. We have been hard on McLaren at the start of the year. They did not look good. They just keep getting better and better. And that was a fun start. Lando and Oscar Piastri took, second and third at the start. They did not back down. I mean, they looked fast and fearless. They took it to Max. That team has signed up for years. The car's gotten better. I mean, I think we've talked previously how even though Alonso was doing his black magic at Aston, that could not continue. And we expect McLaren to leapfrog Aston in the standings. And I'm thinking it's going to get even better next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's likely. Every once in a while we do these best teams on the grid or driver lineups. And I would go so far as to say McLaren has the best driver lineup on the grid. Both of those guys are dedicated and talented and hungry for wins. They want to win. They clearly want to compete. And the way that the team has progressed throughout the season, I think bodes well for the future, knowing that they're capable of developing a car that can compete with the best of them. So I think next year it seems likely that they'll do even better in the championship. I think right now they're close to 50 points back still of Aston, which I guess kind of goes to show how good Alonso was at the start of the year and how bad McLaren was. They're a little over 100 points back of Ferrari for third. I can't see them making up that much. And, there's only like 5 races or something left. But I think they'll close in on them pretty good, which I think is exciting.
It is, and it's remarkable. And, Lando's got many years experience, but he's still only about, 25. What's Oscar Piastri? 19, 20?
Turned 20, right?
I mean, that's a young lineup and a great, talented lineup. Oscar's already made it onto the podium. That was great to see. Why don't you give me your top 5 for this race? And then we'll get to our best surprise and our biggest disappointment.
Yeah, so my top 5, I guess my top 3 is essentially the podium. I had Verstappen and then Norris and then Piastri. And I think it's fair that they are up there. I think they all deserved their podium positions. They were the 3 most consistent and fast drivers during the entire weekend. And I think just really impressive from all of them. They really got into no trouble, were easily able to kind of break away from the field and just drive really good races and end up on the podium. So those are my top three guys. Then, I have a few other drivers that I think are worthy of praise throughout the weekend, but I keep coming back to Liam Lawson. I think is just driving so well. He just seems so calm and comfortable in a car that has proven to be really poor throughout the season. And, he's already out racing his teammate Yuki. I mean, Yuki hasn't really had too many opportunities, but Austin did finish ahead of him in this race. I just, am hoping that at some point he will get another shot at Formula One because he's proven so far this season that he's a more than capable driver. And then lastly, I was debating between a few guys here, but I ended up going with Charles Leclerc in fourth place for the race. After not too great of a showing from him in Singapore, where his teammate won the race, the first non Red Bull driver to do it this season. I think he came back, with a little chip on his shoulder, had something to prove, wanted to, beat his teammate, beat the Mercedes, and he was pretty comfortably able to do that. And so I felt like, it was a good comeback drive from him.
I was going to do best surprise. And I think one of the things that I really liked was Lewis threw off the mask, I think. I think he's been, very diplomatic, very nice. I mean, he's taken Mercedes to task publicly a few times, but gently over the past year and a half. Same with Russell. I think this week the mask came off. It was Lewis the Shark, and I loved it. He went very aggressively against George Russell in a car that was not going to win in that race. He's made public statements that he's going to, in the offseason, head to Brackley where they work on the car and make sure they get it right. So it was good to see. So I think, let's jump to best surprise. And I think Lewis, taking off the mask was my best surprise for this Japanese Grand Prix.
I like that. I mean, I think, Lewis, he's just been such a great driver for such a long time, has won so many championships. And, even while he was pretty easily winning races, he was ruthless about it, much in the same way that Max is now. And, it seemed like since he's been less competitive, or Mercedes has been less competitive in terms of actual wins and even podiums, he kind of gave up the ruthlessness a little bit and focused on, other things, how he can improve the sport and et cetera, et cetera. I think he really wants to win. It's been a long time since he's won. And so, yeah, it's good to see him kind of force his way into the conversation again.
Yeah, I mean, Mercedes hasn't had a win since 2021, and that was not by Lewis.
Well, George won in
Oh, yeah. I'm
22,
sorry, they've had
right?
just one win.
Yeah.
Lewis has not had a win since 2021. Mercedes has had only one win.
Yeah.
That was George. Yeah. So I think Lewis was like, no, this has to end. I mean, they're in second, but it's a distant second, and they've never threatened. I guess another best surprise we've already talked about is McLaren. Two young drivers, great driver lineup. The car has gotten better, significantly better. And now I'm not going to say they're ready to win, but they are certainly battling for podiums. And it's been a long time to see that.
Yeah, I think they've been really exciting in the way they've developed the car. I think both of the drivers have had really strong seasons pretty much throughout the whole season. It just took a while for them to get going. They showed up, race day one with a car that was down with the likes of Haas and Alfa Romeo. And now it's very evident that they have developed a car that can compete for podiums and in those top 5 positions consistently. And both drivers are pretty consistently putting it up there. So it's good to see. It's exciting to see. I think were really frustrated with them to start the season at just how poor they were, harkening back to the likes of Alonso and Jenson Button back in, 2014, 15, something like that, when it was more likely that they would not finish a race than that they would finish the race.
Right, they weren't that bad, but, yeah, it was no fun to watch, not if you're a McLaren fan like we are.
Yeah.
Biggest disappointment, and I want to go first because Sergio, you know, I've sung his praises in the past. Max is a shark like Lewis, and he's chased off every teammate. I think there's like 5 drivers currently in F1 that were Max's teammate. Let's see, there was Ricardo, Albon, Sainz, Gasly, was Ocon?
I don't think
So it's a
Ocon ever
okay, yeah,
was.
so 4. So at least 4. And Sergio's Sergio's about to be 5. I've sung his praises because Max has chased off every teammate. Sergio has survived. He's survived amongst the wolves. No one else has. And I also praise Christian for hiring him. He's a solid veteran driver, won't make mistakes, allegedly. Should take that car into second. He has the Bottas role. Christian Horner learned from Toto Wolff. You hire a number one, and then you hire a guy who will safely get that car into second. But now I'm not even sure he's as good as Bottas anymore. And his last couple races, he's looked lost. So I know Christian Horner has said publicly Sergio signed through 2024, that he's going to race for Red Bull in 2024, but I'm not so sure we can be sure.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, when a driver gets into an accident or something like that, it's maybe not their fault. It's just sort of a racing incident, right? And that's okay. The problem is when you look at that kind of situation in the grand scheme of things, Perez was involved in a dust up basically at the beginning of this race. And there really wasn't anything anybody did wrong per se. But frankly, he qualified out of position. And that's really what put him in a dangerous situation. That stuff can happen if you're down the order. Max was P1, got out to a fine lead, no problems, right? Top 3 guys got out, no problems. Pretty much everybody else had something going on. And that's what can happen, at the start of the race. So even before the race happens, Perez has been I don't necessarily want to just say he's been poor, but he hasn't been as consistently good at coming in the positions that he should be as Max or really a lot of these other drivers in the top 10. So,
Right. I mean, his job is to take the best car in F1 and get it into second. And he's not even getting into third and sometimes fourth and sometimes fifth. It's no good. I mean, I wrote this down. I think he's only about 33 points ahead of Lewis. There's several races to go.
man, if Lewis came in P2, man,
I know
dang.
Lewis is one of the all-time greats, but that Mercedes is a distant second.
Well, I mean, you think about Lewis's teammate, Russell, who I noted this is sitting on the same number of points as Lando Norris. So that car, isn't great. If we've noted, that McLaren started out the season so poorly, and George Russell, very fine driver, is on the same number of points as Lando Norris.
I mean, to his, I won't say credit, but I don't want to make excuses either. But George has had 2 DNFs that were not his fault. I think he pushed the car, was it Singapore, a little bit too hard. I think he was a little bit nervous because Lewis was right on him. And I think he was really desperate to get on the podium. That's another DNF. And there was then, I think, another DNF that was completely his fault. But so I do think the Mercedes car is better than the McLaren. I think it sort of fights with Ferrari, which is the true distant second car, which is the true third. But either way, Lewis is doing a great job, but Sergio is making it too easy. He should not be up by only 33 points or whatever the number is. What do you have on the virtual podium? What or who?
On the virtual podium, I have silly Japanese people that put crazy shit on top of their heads. I think it's fun to see all the different types of fans in Formula One, and F1 goes to so many different places all around the world. And the Japanese fans are just so silly. And I think that's a lot of fun. We saw lots of different kinds of headgear. They had helmets with, like pit wall signs and little DRS like wings and things just sitting on their heads. I think it's fun, it's funny, and it's, kind of cool to see, some of the creativity that these fans have.
Yeah, America has sort of disproportionate influence on the global culture than England, but so does Japan. And Japan is the one that has the sort of disproportionate influence on the global culture by sort of completely embracing their uniqueness, their peculiarities, you know? So that is a good one. For me, I only recently discovered it. I do subscribe to F1 TV, and they have F1 Kids. These kids with their adorable little British accents commenting on the race, commenting on the drivers, and they do such a great job. If anyone has F1 TV, I would encourage them to watch F1 Kids. Just real fun race analysis, race coverage by these British children. Okay, switching to the soft compound. Lando Norris. What do we think of this? He has now surpassed Nico Hulkenberg for the most points in F1 without a win.
That is pretty crazy.
Seemed like it took
He'll
Nico
get a
forever to
win,
get
though.
there. Yeah. It's hard to think he'll finish his F1 career without a win.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it kind of did seem like Hulkenberg had been in F1 for a long ass time. I don't know. He's been in more middling cars perhaps than Norris has basically been driving for McLaren his entire F1 career.
Yeah, and he signed up for, I think, at least through 25, I think. And the way McLaren is developing, yeah, it seems like he will. I mean, Gasly has a win. Ocon has a win. Sergio has a win. George has a win.
Some of the guys on the grid that do have a win, it was maybe a little bit more. I don't want to discredit them because they're awesome wins, very cool. It's one of the cool things about F1, but a little bit more sort of fluky where something kind of crazy happened and they found themselves at the front and were able to kind of hold on to those positions. I think when Norris wins, nothing crazy is going to happen. He's just going to beat everybody. Which, yeah, I have no doubt that pretty soon, whether it's this season, next season, or, if not next season, then I have to imagine he's not going to go more than the next 3 seasons without a win. So I think it'll happen soon, but it'll probably be a tough record to beat once he finally does get his win, because that is a lot of points.
He's so young, but he's just been racing for so many years, has a lot of points, but yeah, no win. Now, I've joked with our European listeners that they don't understand geography. They don't know geography because they're always saying, why does America have 3 races? Well, it's like, well, look at the map. That's why. Richest country in the world and one of the biggest. And I'm okay with adding a 4th race. But I heard there are rumors that Athens, Greece wants to have an F1 race and it will be a street track. And I thought, you know what? I'd give up 2 American races. No, maybe 1. We'll give up Miami. Not that we have to, but like to see an Athens street race F1, wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be awesome. That would be so cool. I would love to see that. I think there are plenty of races on the calendar that could be replaced by an Athens street race. And yeah, it would be awesome to see. I would love that. Going up by all these ancient Greek ruins, Parthenon, all that would just be cool.
Yep. Now, what about this idea? So, in golf, Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, and several billionaires are creating this sort of new golf league. And it combines virtual golf with real golf. If I understand it, it's sort of your drives are in a sort of a semi-virtual environment, and then your short game is on sort of an artificial green, and they want to create a league for this. And it's one of those things where a lot of people could do it. You don't have to just be a professional. And I was like, man, let Lewis retire. Him, Seb's looking for jobs. I mean, Seb was out there planting bees or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, he's desperate. He wants something to do. Lewis, Seb, some various billionaires. What if there's a way of doing something like that for F1, like I don't know, a combined, simulator, and then get a couple laps on track. I'm not sure how that would work, but it would be awesome.
It would be very cool. It's already really cool that they have sort of esports championships for F1, but if there was a way that you could combine that with actually getting out onto a real track in a real car or cart or something, I think it would make it even more exciting and more fun.
Okay, ask the stewards. A main job of the team principal. It's like a Hollywood producer. It's like lining up the talent. So we've had a lot of contract signings recently. So McLaren has signed up Oscar through, I believe, 2025, which I think is the same as Lando. I'm not sure. So that's a great young team they've got locked up for at least 2 more years. We heard that Yuki is re signed and Liam Lawson is unceremoniously getting the boot, and Daniel will be back. And as soon as he's returns from his injury, and back again next year at AlphaTauri. I don't know. You have any thoughts on that? And then there's Logan. I think Logan's seat.
It's the only open seat.
Yeah, it's the only open seat because yeah, that's right. Because Alfa Romeo re-signed
Zhou.
Zhou.
Yeah.
I thought that wasn't a good decision. There's so many better drivers out there, in my opinion. But you know, this is a business. It's entertainment for us, but it's a business for them. Alfa Romeo wants to sell a lot more cars in China. He's a great representative for them. So you can sort of understand what they're doing. So Logan's the odd man out. What do you think of that? I don't know. Maybe he deserves it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think lucky for McLaren this year, Oscar did not send out a tweet describing the fact that he never consented to a contract like he did with Alpine last year. So that's good news for them. For AlphaTauri, that's probably one of my biggest disappointments, I think, of the weekend as a whole is that, Liam Lawson still doesn't have a seat. I think he has shown far more so than Nick DeVries ever did that he's fully capable of being a Formula One driver. He seems more capable than a number of guys that are currently on the grid or signed for next season. So I found it rather disappointing that AlphaTauri, announced they're re-signing both Yuki and Ricardo, not continuing to allow Lawson a shot there. The fact that there's only one open seat left basically for next season is tough because I think Lawson totally deserves a shot. And frankly, based on performances this year, I don't think Logan Sargeant is deserving of that seat, but I would like him back in that seat just to see, if one more year, he kind of figures it out. I'm not sure that that would happen, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's an American, so we want him to do well. He's not had a full year yet, but it's not looking good for him. And as far as Liam, I'm a big believer go where you're loved, not where you're needed, unless there's only one seat left in all of F1. And if they need you, go. But I think, unfortunately, Liam is looking for a long term deal. He's affiliated with Red Bull. I don't think Williams will hire him as a replacement for Logan Sargent, assuming they get rid of him, which we do. Yeah, it's tough. I think he's been so good. Daniel has been on the outs, I think, for quite a while. I mean, he's just seemed to have lost it a bit. Christian Horner, Red Bull team principal, and sort of kind of, overseer of the AlphaTauri team in a sense, did say they've signed Liam Lawson as a reserve driver. He'll be working the sims, and they will get him a seat by 2025. But I mean, that's Christian Horner happy talk to the media. I don't know if we can believe it. If I'm Liam, I want a contract that I want locked up. And if someone gives him an actual seat next year, I would take it. Speaking of driver signings, something we touched on last episode was that in a cost cap era, teams are going to be cautious. So you aren't always going to get the best driver, the fastest driver, if that's a reckless driver, because crashes during races, sprints, qualifying, and or practice cost a lot of money, and that money is a direct hit against the cost cap. And I hate to say it because I was looking at the numbers, and Logan's his is the highest. He's at about 4 million. His crashes have cost Williams about $4 million. And it's funny because
Oh, no.
the top three, or however we want to do it, the bottom three, let's say, Logan has cost Williams about 4 million. Lance Stroll, who we have not was deserving of an F1 seat, at least not beyond this year. He's cost the team 3 million. Sergio Perez has cost Red Bull about 2.5 million. Yep. And I think it's not a perfect barometer, but it's a good one. The least costly drivers: Max, then Alonso, then Lewis.
That
And
sounds
most
about right.
costly,
Yeah.
yeah, and most costly Logan,
Stroll,
Lance, and
Perez.
Sergio.
Oof.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is a good barometer in the cost cap era.
Man, yeah, that's important. I mean, not even just in cost cap, just for some of these teams, right? Like you're costing your team that money to spend on other resources. So that's tough, if you think of AlphaTauri or Haas or something like that. I have to imagine that's, one of the reasons Haas, is looking for these sort of solid veteran drivers, Magnussen and Hulkenberg. Currently, it's like, look, we can't have damage consistently. So we can't have a Mick Schumacher or a Nikita Mazepin because you're just breaking the car and we don't have the money to fix it or replace it.
Yep. And, I think this is a good barometer of seeing who's the best driver out there, who's the worst driver out there, who might lose their seat, who might keep their seat. The fun stuff for us is the drama. So, I love the fact that George Russell fully believes he's the future of Mercedes. And I love the fact that his teammate, 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, fully believes he is the present of Mercedes and that present is going to extend for several more years. That's that's going to cause a lot of friction in that paddock, which I love. That's going to be a big headache for Total Wolff. I mean, I don't think Total Wolff, the team principal for Mercedes, is yet prepared emotionally for this. I mean, Mercedes had just an absolute rocket ship. The victories came easy, not just in 1 year, but over 7, 8 years. And for the last several years of that, it was harmonious because Bottas was happy to play the second. Now they've got a car, even if it improves as we expect it next year, it's still going to have to fight against Red Bull, against Ferrari, maybe against McLaren. And the drivers on the same team are going to fight one another. That is a big headache. Now, and that's just so much more fun. There's the harsh reality. Logan, sorry, you're costing the team too much money. Sergio, you're costing the team too much money. But the fun stuff is like, what the hell am I going to do with George and Lewis? They're going to kill each other.
Yeah, that is one of the reasons I thought it was a bad idea for Mercedes to sign George Russell. I mean, I recall, when there were rumblings like, oh, Mercedes is going to sign Russell from Williams. That's always been the plan. Bottas is getting the boot. Okay, that's all well and good, but you have a 7-time world champion here that is a 7-time world champion and he's going to want to win.
Yeah, he's not going to want
He
to go into
doesn't
the night
give a
quietly.
shit about, this other kid that's coming in that you're saying, "Oh, he's our guy for the future." Well, yeah, now we're starting to see that a little bit more and more. Each race, it seems like, where Hamilton and Russell, yeah, they're close, but are they too close? For Mercedes, I think they're thinking they're too close. They did everything they could in this race basically to keep them apart, which I thought was kind of funny, just on different sort of pit strategies and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And to his credit, I think George has played nice, but I also think that's because so far playing nice hasn't cost him any wins, and it just barely maybe cost him a podium. I think he's not going to continue playing nice, just like Lewis is no longer playing nice.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Lewis is going to continue playing nice. I think he did for the first, season and a half that they were together. But he's sort of realizing like my real direct competition is now my teammate. That has not been the case for a long time. So I'm going to stomp that out. And, you know, George doesn't want to get stomped out. He's here to stay. So that's one of the most intriguing and most exciting teams, I think, for the future. We already talked about like Norris and Piastri at McLaren. They both seem like fun, genuinely nice people. But I have to imagine, we got maybe a little bit of a taste of it this weekend. But I have to imagine, once those battles for podiums and wins start coming their way, they're not going to be so nice to each other either. So I think we're in for a good show in the future of F1.
Across the line, that's our segment where we predict the top 5 finishers of the next race. The next race is in Qatar in 2 weeks. There's also a sprint. Now, in Across the Line, when we predict a driver correctly, if they do make it in the top 5, we get 1 point. If we get them in the exact right spot, we get 3 points. Patrick, son, what are the current standings of Across the Line?
Current standings have you with a narrow lead, 57-51.
Okay. All right. Yeah, well, several races still to go. That's a tough one. That's going to be a good, tough battle. There is a sprint in Qatar. Again, the race is in 2 weeks. Then 2 weeks after that in Austin. I wondered what the results were for Qatar last year because I could not remember. And it was like, oh, they did not race there last year. So it was 2021, I believe. And then they've signed a 10-year deal for that track.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but the podium in 2021 was Lewis Max Alonso, which could happen again.
That could happen again. That would be pretty cool if it did. Yeah, Qatar.
The 3 world champions on the podium together. That'd be awesome. Okay, so who goes first? I think it's me, isn't it?
According to my notes, I go first this week.
Ugh, okay.
I'm going to have to go with the hot hand, best car, best driver, Verstappen. I have a deficit to make up here, so going to go with the easy pick.
Okay, nice. Well, I'm going to go with the 2 other fellows who were on the podium in Qatar in 2021, Lewis Hamilton and then Fernando Alonso, LH and FA.
Nice. Dang. That's an old top 2. I am gonna roll with maybe, I'll do same top 2 as this week. Norris coming in P2. And then I will take Sainz P3.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to take OP3. Are you down with OP3? All right, but no, you got Carlos Sainz. So then that leaves me to take OP3, Oscar Piastri. And then you've taken Sainz. I really, really want to take Perez, given that he is in such a great car. I think maybe the 1 week break will help him. So I'm going to take Sergio Perez, number 4.
Nice. Checo, back in the top 5. You've got Hamilton up there, top spot. Take George Russell, P4, just off the podium. And, maybe, who else do we got? Maybe we say Pierre Gasly figures it out in the Alpine, comes P5.
All right. So you have Max, Lewis, Carlos, George, and Pierre. I have Lewis, Fernando, Oscar, Sergio, and I think in my top 5, let's choose the forgotten man of Ferrari. You would think that would be possible, but it is, it seems like, Charles Leclerc, number 5. Any crazy predictions for the race or the rest of the season, Patrick?
Qatar or rest of the season? I don't really have anything interesting. Maybe my crazy prediction will be that Logan Sargeant will retain his seat at Williams. leaving Liam Lawson, the odd man out, only to return as Sergio Perez's replacement next season.
That would be a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, yeah. Mine is somewhat off track. Lewis hasn't won since 2021. Things have just been a little off kilter there inside that Mercedes garage. And when did it happen? It happened when he parted ways with his personal assistant slash trainer, Angela. Remember? She was
I
always out
I
there,
do
cheery,
remember
smiling,
Angela. Yeah.
running around the garages. She was such a fun presence. Now she's gone. I think that's made him a little off. So that's my prediction. The return of Angela to the Mercedes paddock.
Nice.
All right. I want to remind our listeners, send your questions or comments to heartcompoundpod@gmail.com. We may read them on the show. We definitely will read them. And I wish to thank you all for listening to everybody's most beloved father and son F1 podcast. And we are Lights Out.
See ya. Thanks for listening.
Hey, good show. My voice held up. I'm surprised. I always watch silent movies, but for the past several months, I've been watching basically every post World War II Japanese samurai movie, and they are all just crazily ridiculous.
Yes.
And when I ran through all of those, I then, and I don't know why, pivoted to 1960s French New Wave cinema,
Ooh.
and they are crazily ridiculous. And I realized there's a theme with all of this, with F1, with the French New Wave cinema, with the post-war Japanese samurai movies. And it's that the men, the leads in these, they're all peacocks. They're all ridiculous. They all think everything should be about them. They're all irrationally aggressive. And that impacts everyone around them.